Hey, let's play a thinking game. You finally made it. You worked hard for months and years. You became successful. You make great money. You're respected on paper. And life is going great. But for some reason, your relationships feels off. Like you feel that something is off. Every relationship turns into stress. In every relationships, you have insecurity. And you don't even feel like the leader in your own relationship. You look around you, you see other men who have way better relationships than you, who have higher quality, more secure relationships than you, who have better women than you. And you look at those men, and you see that those men are less appealing than you, and are less successful than you. Deep down, even if you don't want to admit it, even if you push it away, you feel like you could have chosen a better woman. That's when you start to think and you realize that success in business doesn't equal to success in relationships. That's what I want to teach you today. Maybe you can relate to this. In my first relationship, I completely ignored all of the red flags. I didn't even had criterias. I had, but I didn't thought about them either. I just said, this girl is cute and she's giving me attention. And I basically have zero attention from women. So I will try to make it out with her. And no matter what she does, I can always find a way. You know? A big fucking mistake. I believe every man can understand that when you have a relationship for the first time, you unnaturally, in a very needy way, you bond with your girl like this. But that's not gonna make your relationship stronger. That's the only way to make a relationship crash like this. Because, right, everybody knows that the first couple weeks of the relationship is the honeymoon phase. No matter what, you two find a way to make it out. But after the honeymoon phase is over, your real personalities show up. And you soon realize that if your values and everything else doesn't align, you're not very compatible. And if you're not compatible, it's not gonna work in the long term. That's what happened in my first relationship. After the honeymoon phase was over, because our values didn't align, because I ignored all of the red flags, because I didn't know how to choose a better woman, I completely ignored every criteria in my head. I didn't even thought about that. Our personalities clashed because we don't believe the same thing. We're very different. We don't believe the same values. And we kept on having arguments over and over again until we finally broke up after a long time. Now after that, because I was in a needy way, unnatural way, I was bonded with her, I had like a huge heartbreak and I wasted a lot of time trying to chase the wrong woman. And you probably had the same problem with me. Maybe you still have the same problem with me. Maybe you still feel insecure in your relationship. Maybe you still feel like something is off. Would you believe me if I told you that a lot of the successful men go through the same problems with you, if not worse problems? See, there are these mistakes that most men make. And even the successful men, the men on the self-improvements, make this mistake. And they are failing at relationships because of this. And I look at them and I can't believe how much of an obvious mistake that they're making and how easily preventable that this is. Especially if you're from the West, you probably make all of these mistakes. See, the first mistake is you probably don't have any criteria, or you have very little criteria that you constantly breach when you meet a woman. Have you ever sat down and really genuinely thought about what to choose in a woman, what her values should be like, what is her religion should be like, her face, her race, her everything, her family? Have you ever sat down and thought about that? You haven't, didn't you? The second mistake is choosing attraction over your compatibility. When you meet a woman, you tend to exaggerate her beauty. And because you exaggerate her beauty, and because you don't get much attention from women, you completely ignore the red flags. And you don't think about, in the long term, how your relationship might work. Because you have that feeling inside you. Like your brain can easily detect if this woman is a future wife material or not. But you ignore them. You ignore them and you think that this woman is cute enough. And maybe I cannot get a woman who is this beautiful ever again. That's why I'm gonna ignore these red flags and try to make it work no matter what. But when you think like that, it never works. Like never works whatsoever. You either just kill your soul trying to like be with her, trying to appease her, trying to like make the relationship stay alive, or you break up with her after a while and you suffer a heartbreak because you had so much time with her and you bonded in that time. And the third mistake is basically the same with other two mistakes, and that is ignoring red flags. When you ignore red flags, when you only think about beauty, when you don't think long term, your relationship is gonna fail. Like, if you don't have the same values, if your personalities are very different, how do you not expect it to crash at a certain point? Because aren't you trying to build a family? When you build a family with a woman, you're gonna be with her for the rest of your life. So if you're serious, you should never ignore these mistakes. You should never make these mistakes. You should never choose attraction over her compatibility. You should never ignore your criteria. You should never ignore the red flags. You should be like clear cut with this. And that's why most men fail at their relationships. So don't ever choose a woman just because you think she's beautiful and she's a good person. Like, oh my God, look how many people she helps. She's a very, very good person. But that doesn't mean you two are compatible. That doesn't mean you two share the same values. And that doesn't mean your personalities aren't gonna crash someday and gonna keep spiraling afterwards. The best way to avoid this is to have a good amount of criterias. And I'm not talking about the woman in the Tinder apps, you know, you gotta be at least 6'5", you gotta make 100K. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about values and boundaries. You need to have clear boundaries and you need to have the same values together. You need to be planning future always. You need to never ignore that voice inside you. No matter how beautiful she is, you don't think there is any beautiful woman in the world, bro? Because I can assure you, if the only thing that you worry is beauty, then you're gonna fail. Not only because that's not gonna be the most beautiful woman that you can get. You can always get more beautiful woman. But because you make all of these mistakes and you ignore all of the red flags. You ignore that voice inside you. All of us has that voice inside of us. If you don't ignore your common sense, and if you have a good amount of criteria that you never compromise, you're gonna be less likely to fail. And that's what I learned from all of my relationships. Like, I can't even believe that successful men make these mistakes. I seen the same pattern with Hamza Ahmed. He's a self-improvement YouTuber. I seen the same pattern with Larry Holmes. When it comes to relationships, being successful is not gonna make you build a great family. Having standards is gonna help you build a great family with a great future. Have a great day, bro.